For 12 years I locked in a basement, believing I was too dangerous to exist upstairs, until I learned my stepmother locked me there for money. The night I escaped, I didn't run. I prepared to confront her. What I uncovered next twisted everything I thought I knew. Before I tell you how the truth detonated my entire life, please subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps this story reach those who need it most. My name is Landon Vale, and for more than a decade I lived beneath the house on Sycamore Hill Road, in a concrete cell my stepmother insisted was for my safety. She said I had violent episodes. She claimed I hurt people during blackouts. She told me doctors confirmed I was unstable after my parents died when I was 6. I believed her. Every word. Every lie. Marla Hensley, my stepmother, married my father 2 weeks before the accident that killed both him and my biological mother, Evelyn Vale. My only real memory from that time is Evelyn's voice reading me a bedtime story and then waking up in a hospital with Marla telling me everything was gone. She became my guardian overnight. She said everyone agreed a child like me needed controlled supervision. Her voice had a cold certainty that silenced any question. "You're dangerous, Landon," she would say through the steel door she installed at the top of the basement stairs. "You hurt people. You don't remember, because your mind blocks it out. I'm the only one keeping you from a psychiatric ward." She showed me documents, pages stamped with the name Dr. Rowan Bennett, whom I never met. They described me as a threat, unstable, prone to dissociation, requiring strict isolation. The forms were professional, filled with medical terms I didn't understand. But they were real enough to convince a child. So I stayed in that basement, convinced the world was safer with me trapped below it. The basement was small, 20 feet by 15, with peeling concrete walls and a single window near the ceiling painted black from the outside. A rusty chemical toilet sat in the corner. A sink dripped constantly, 27 drops per minute. I know because I counted them for years. Counting became a habit, like breathing. Counting meant time still existed, even if I didn't. Food came once daily. Cold beans. Stale crackers. Soups I suspected came from donation bins. She said heavy meals increased episodes. I never saw her fully enter the room. She wore gloves every time she came down, deposited the tray on the ground, and immediately retreated up the stairs, locking the door with 3 unmistakable clicks. Those clicks became the beginning and end of every day. She filled the basement with old textbooks, history books ending before I was born, science books calling Pluto a planet, torn dictionaries missing pages. They became my lifeline. I taught myself to read better. I memorized entire chapters. I solved the same math equations hundreds of times. When noise from the neighborhood filtered through the window, kids laughing, dogs barking, someone mowing their lawn, Marla blasted a static-filled radio to drown out the world. Only one evangelical station came through, preaching fear and damnation. Maybe she liked the irony. She told neighbors I was at a special facility in Montana. I overheard her once during a barbecue. "The boy never recovered after losing both parents," she said, her voice sweet and sorrowful. "We visit him, of course. But the doctors say familiar faces worsen his condition." They believed her. Why wouldn't they? She played the role of grieving, devoted stepmother perfectly. Sometimes she showed me scratches or bruises on her body, swearing I caused them during a blackout. When I said I didn't remember, she would sigh with practiced patience. "Of course you don't remember. That's your illness. That's why you must stay down here." I apologized for hurting her. I cried for sins I never committed. I begged her not to send me to an institution. Looking back, I understand just how deeply she conditioned me. Everything she did, every mark she showed me, every forged report, every story, was part of a precise, calculated prison she built to keep me afraid, silent, and dependent. But the lies began unraveling on my 18th birthday. She came downstairs with my usual cold meal, but this time, she added something I hadn't seen in 12 years, a small chocolate cupcake with a crooked candle. It was almost funny how ridiculous it looked next to the dented metal tray. Her hands were trembling. "Landon," she said, not meeting my eyes, "you're 18 now. That means certain legal responsibilities shift. I've arranged for a permanent facility to take over your care." Cold shot through my spine. "Permanent?" I whispered. She nodded too quickly. "It's better for both of us. You're getting worse. You wandered out during an episode last week and injured a neighbor's child. You don't remember, because you never do." Her lies slid into place like puzzle pieces, but suddenly, they felt wrong. Misaligned. Something inside me flinched instead of folding. She hurried upstairs, locking the door behind her. That night, my 18th birthday, I lay awake, listening. Around midnight, her voice filtered through the vent above my bed. She was on the phone. With Marcus Haas, her boyfriend. The man whose voice I'd heard late at night for years. Yes, Tuesday morning, she whispered. The van will take him to the facility. Once he's committed under the fake name, the trust continues paying me. They still think he's dead. My heart stopped. Fake name. Trust. Dead? Marcus chuckled. You've been collecting that money how long? 12 years, she said proudly. 20,000 a month. And after Tuesday, I'll have it for life. He laughed again. And he never suspected? Of course not, she said. He believes every word. I tell him he killed a dog, he cries for an hour. He thinks he's a monster. For the first time in 12 years? I felt something sharp inside me. Awake. Alive. Not anger. Not rage. Truth. It was like a light flicked on in a pitch-black room. I wasn't dangerous. I wasn't unstable. I wasn't broken. I was imprisoned. And I had 3 days until she erased me forever. The night I learned the truth, sleep wasn't even a possibility. I lay awake on the thin mattress, staring at the ceiling where cracks ran like veins across the concrete. Every sound in the house felt amplified, the hum of the refrigerator upstairs, the ticking of her antique hallway clock, the faint murmur of the television she always left on while drifting into wine-induced sleep. For the first time in 12 years, none of it felt permanent. For the first time, the basement walls did not feel like the world. They felt like a problem to solve. My mind no longer drifted into helpless terror. It sharpened, brutally, quickly, like it had been waiting its entire life for this moment. Every manipulation Marla had used, every lie she'd spoon-fed me since childhood, snapped into clarity. I replayed the phone call she made in vicious detail, letting each word carve itself into my memory. Fake name. Facility overseas. Trust money. They think he's dead. All of it meant one thing, the real danger wasn't me. It was her. I had 72 hours before she shipped me out of the country to disappear forever. 3 days to undo 12 years of conditioning. 3 days to escape a place I had never once tried to leave. But this time, I wasn't afraid of what was outside. I was afraid of leaving it too late. The basement door was locked from the outside with a heavy deadbolt. As a child, I'd accepted it as necessary. As a teenager, I'd accepted it as punishment. But now, as someone who understood he'd been stolen from his life, I examined it with new eyes. The doorframe was old. Wooden. Warped from moisture over the years. The leak that dripped along the staircase, something I used to blame myself for somehow causing, had softened the frame in one corner. When I pressed my fingers into it, the wood dented slightly, leaving an imprint. It wasn't much. But it was enough. I waited until sunrise, when Marla's footsteps moved across the kitchen above me. She walked with confidence, heels clicking, a woman who believed the world bent easily to her. I listened as she poured coffee, made a call, and muttered something about final preparations. When she finally came down with my breakfast, she took only 2 steps into the basement, exactly 2, the same as always. A silent rule she had created for herself, out of fear or disgust or both. She placed the tray down. Landon, you need to eat. The facility expects you to be stable. I lifted my eyes to her, doing everything in my power to appear defeated. Small. Tamed. Yes, Marla, I whispered. Hearing her name on my lips startled her. I almost never spoke more than necessary. But she brushed it off, turning back to the stairs. 3 clicks. The door locked. Her world closed. Mine cracked open. I waited until her car engine started. She always went into town on Monday mornings, likely to prepare documents for my institutionalization. The second I heard the engine fade, I moved. The first step was gathering tools. 12 years in a basement doesn't give you much, but survival teaches you to see objects for what they could be. I took a metal fork I'd hidden months ago, a fork she'd thrown down because the prongs were bent, and a rusted hinge from an old storage crate. The fork worked like a chisel. The hinge worked like leverage. My fingers worked like they had something to prove. I chipped at the softened part of the doorframe, slow and controlled. The wood flaked, then peeled. Every few minutes I stopped to listen, cars outside, birds, the creak of the house settling. Every sound felt like a threat. By midday, sweat dripped down my spine. My hands were raw, skin tearing near the knuckles. But the wood was loosening, truly loosening. The deadbolt screws were finally visible, sunken into a patch of rot. I anchored the fork under the metal plate and pushed. Hard. The wood groaned, cracked, and splintered under the pressure. The deadbolt did not move. But the frame surrounding it did. A surge of adrenaline pulsed through me. The basement, my cage, my entire world, had a weakness. By nightfall, my hands trembled from exertion, but I didn't stop. Not when I thought she might come home. Not when every muscle screamed. I kept scraping, pulling, prying, listening for her car at every shadow of noise. When headlights finally washed across the window near the ceiling, I shoved the tools under the mattress and sat on the floor, pretending to read. The door unlocked with its familiar 3 clicks. It took everything in me not to stare openly at the rotting frame. "Did you eat?" she asked. I nodded. She didn't check. She never did. She only needed to see me small, obedient, manageable. "You should rest," she said. "Tomorrow will be stressful. New places always upset you." She didn't notice the faint dust near the doorframe. Or maybe she did, but dismissed it. After all, what could I, a boy she believed brainwashed enough to accept anything, possibly do? She locked the door and left. That night, I lay awake with my heartbeat pounding like a fist against the inside of my chest. Tomorrow was Monday. The transfer was Tuesday. If I didn't escape by then, I'd vanish from the world entirely. I waited until her nighttime routine finished, wine, television, footsteps to the bedroom. When silence settled thick and heavy, I rose. Hand over mouth to steady my breathing. Tools in hand. Eyes fixed on the door. This was survival. I wedged the fork under the bolt plate, twisted hard, and felt the screws shift. The wood splintered softly. The metal bent. I adjusted my grip, angled the hinge as a lever, and pushed with every ounce of strength left in my body. A low crack echoed through the basement. Then another. Then, the metal plate tore free from the rotten frame. The door finally moved. Not much, half an inch. But enough to feel the cold draft from upstairs whisper against my skin. For the first time in 12 years, the air smelled different. Cleaner. Sharper. Free. I froze, terrified the sound echoed upstairs. Nothing happened. No footsteps. No shifting floorboards. I pushed the door wider with trembling hands until it opened fully onto the staircase. The shadows of the house stretched downward like a world I'd only dreamed about. I couldn't move. My legs shook, not from fear, but from 12 years of conditioned paralysis. I whispered to myself. "You're not dangerous." "She is." And I climbed the stairs. The 7th step creaked loudly. I stopped breathing. Nothing stirred upstairs. At the top of the staircase, I used the hinge to gently push the kitchen door open. The hallway stretched out in front of me, full of light from the street lamp outside. Pictures lined the walls, pictures of travels, friends, holidays. Not one included me. There were places where my photo once hung, lighter rectangles faded into the wallpaper, but they had been removed, replaced with photos of Marla and Marcus smiling at beaches, mountains, resorts. I had been scrubbed from the house. From the life. From existence. I moved quietly into the living room, touching the furniture like it would disappear. The carpet felt soft, too soft. The air felt warm. Everything upstairs felt impossibly big. Then my eyes fell on something that made my heart thud hard in my chest. Marla's home office door was slightly open. Inside that room were the answers to every question she'd buried under 12 years of lies. My pulse hammered. My breath shook. But I pushed the door open. This was the moment everything changed. The office smelled like perfume, printer ink, and deception. The blinds were closed, but a sliver of moonlight slipped between them, casting thin silver bars across the desk, as if even the light thought this room deserved to be behind bars. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me just enough to feel hidden but not trapped. Trapped was a feeling I would never accept again. Her desk was immaculate, organized with military precision. A planner open to the week of my transfer. A folder labeled Clearwater Facility Intake. A stack of documents paperclipped neatly in chronological order, like she'd been preparing for my disappearance for years. But what stopped me cold was a thin binder lying half-tucked under a pile of envelopes. It was labeled, Callaway Trust, Beneficiary Review. My breath caught in my throat like a punch. Callaway. My real last name. The last name she erased from every document, every record, every memory she allowed me to keep. My hands trembled as I opened the binder. Inside were 12 years of bank statements, each detailing a monthly transfer of $20,000. The deposit origin. Helena Callaway Estate Trust. My mother's name. A name I hadn't seen written anywhere for 12 years, not in photos, not in letters, not in any memory I'd been permitted to keep. The reality hit me in a single, crushing wave. My mother hadn't just left money behind. She'd left a life behind. One I was supposed to inherit. And Marla had stolen it. My stomach twisted as I flipped through the documents. Each statement was stamped received with the neat pen stroke of someone who never worried about consequences. Alongside the transfers were handwritten notes, her handwriting, proud and looping. Use part of the trust for renovations, deduct as medical expenses. New car from trust residuals, necessary travel for Dustin's care. Increase personal allowance, justify as therapeutic supplies. Every word made my jaw clench. Then I found the form that made my hands go cold. A death certificate. Dustin Callaway, deceased. Age 6. My birthday. My name. My death. Filed 12 years ago. Stamped. Certified. Approved. She didn't just erase me from the world. She buried me. My breath quickened, the edges of my vision tightening. I forced myself to keep reading because knowing the truth was the only way to kill the lies she built around me. Behind the death certificate was a scanned copy of a missing persons report, one I had never seen, one with my photo from childhood taped to the corner. But printed across the bottom in red ink were the words, "Case closed, presumed dead." And suddenly the pieces snapped into place. She hadn't simply hidden me. She'd hidden profits. A living child couldn't keep her collecting my trust money. But a dead child? That was a blank check with no expiration date. My heart hammered against the inside of my ribs. I turned page after page, each document worse than the last. Forged psychiatric evaluations. Fake letters from doctors. Fabricated diagnoses. Recommendations for indefinite isolation, signed by a doctor I now knew never once saw me. She'd built an entire medical history from nothing but lies. And I had lived inside those lies for 12 years. I felt the rage rising, hot, sharp, electric, something I'd never allowed myself to feel because rage meant danger, and danger meant punishment, and punishment meant I deserved whatever came next. But tonight, something had shifted. Rage didn't feel dangerous. It felt righteous. I kept flipping until I reached the last page, where a set of printed emails caught my eye. From M. Hutchins. To Marcus Hale. Subject, transfer plan, final step. Once Dustin is delivered to the Mexico facility, we can safely dissolve the placeholder charity. The trust payments will continue indefinitely under my guardianship due to documented mental incompetency. No one will question it. No risk of him resurfacing. We can finally leave Oregon. Delivered. Like cargo. Like a package. Like I wasn't even human. Something inside me broke. A quiet break, not loud, not violent, but final. I closed the binder, forcing my hands steady. I wasn't leaving this house as the broken child she crafted. I was leaving as someone she never planned for. A boy who knew the truth. As I moved to leave the office, something caught my attention, a picture frame turned face down on the edge of the bookshelf. Everything else in the room was perfectly placed, so the flipped frame felt deliberate. I picked it up, heart pounding. It was a photo of me. Not hidden. Not destroyed. Me at age 5, smiling wide on a beach beside my mother. A woman with warm eyes and dark hair like mine. She was kneeling beside me, arms wrapped around my small body. The sun made her hair glow, and I couldn't help but stare at her hands. They were gentle, protective, loving. Everything Marla's hands had never been. Behind the photo was something else, a folded note. My breath hitched as I opened it. A woman's handwriting filled the page. Delicate. Elegant. Familiar. My mother's handwriting. If anything happens to me, please protect Dustin. He is kind. He is bright. He is good. He is the best thing I ever made in my life. Please let him grow. It was dated 1 week before she died. My knees weakened. Tears blurred my vision. I'd spent 12 years believing I was dangerous, broken, unworthy of living among people. But she had believed I was good. My mother had believed I deserved a life. That belief had been buried under a basement. Not anymore. I tucked the note safely in my pocket. And then the front door creaked open. I froze. Footsteps. Not soft ones. Boots. Not Marla. Marcus. I ducked behind the bookshelf, pressing myself into the shadows. Marcus's voice drifted into the office. Marla? You home? Lights are on. I swallowed hard. He was early. Hours earlier than usual. Too early for me to slip out unnoticed. Footsteps moved closer. The floorboards near the office creaked. Then the door handle turned. I held my breath. Every muscle locked. Every instinct screamed to fight, to run, to hide. The door began to open. Footsteps entered the dim room. Then Marcus's voice said quietly, Marla, why's your desk drawer open? He wasn't talking to me. He wasn't aware. Not yet. But in seconds, he would be. And that was when everything truly started to unravel. Marcus stepped fully inside the office, muttering to himself as he rifled through the papers Marla had left out. From where I crouched in the shadows behind the bookshelf, I could see him clearly, tall, heavy-set, a mechanic's jacket still on, smelling faintly of gasoline and cigarette smoke. The kind of man who never whispered unless he wanted someone to be afraid. He wasn't afraid now. He was irritated. Marla, he grumbled, flipping through the binder I'd just closed. You left this out? You getting sloppy or what? I held my breath so tightly my lungs burned. My fingers dug into the carpet as adrenaline surged through me. I had not planned for him. He wasn't supposed to be here until morning. He wasn't supposed to be in the house at all. And most importantly, he wasn't supposed to find the office torn apart. Marcus turned the page of the binder. And then he froze. "Oh, hell no," he whispered. His voice sharpened. "Why's the trust binder open?" He flipped another page. Another. Too many. I felt the shift happen, the exact second confusion turned into suspicion. "Marla," he called louder, walking toward the hallway. "Someone's been in here." His footsteps stopped. Something clicked in his mind. Another realization. "The basement door," he muttered. "Did you lock it? Did you double-check the damn lock?" My pulse pounded so hard I thought he might hear it. He moved toward the office doorway. I needed an escape route. Now. The window was too small. The door was blocked by him. The only possible path was slipping around the bookshelf while he stepped into the hall, but that required timing that almost bordered on impossible. Marcus paused at the threshold, running his hand across the doorknob. "If that kid is out, I swear to God." He didn't finish. He didn't get the chance. His phone rang. He grabbed it instantly. "Marla? Where the hell are you?" Her panicked voice bled through even from where I crouched. "What do you mean you're almost home?" he snapped. "You didn't check on him today? You didn't double-check the lock? I told you." My blood went cold. She was on her way home. Marcus rubbed his forehead, pacing. "Your office is torn up. The documents are out. If he saw this." Silence. Then Marla's voice, sharper and darker than I'd ever heard it. Even muffled by distance, the venom was unmistakable. "Find him." Marcus's tone dropped into something hateful. "And what exactly do you want me to do if I do find him?" Marla's answer was so quiet I barely heard it, but Marcus heard it perfectly. His posture stiffened. Then he nodded slowly. "Yeah," he said. "I can do that." I felt the world tilt again. Not violently. Not with panic. But with clarity. He wasn't just looking for me. He was going to eliminate me. I wasn't a threat they wanted to contain anymore. I was a loose end they needed to cut. Marcus hung up and turned back toward the office, his eyes scanning the room with new intent. Predatory. Focused. Patient. He stepped inside again. And now, he headed directly toward the bookshelf. Toward me. I dropped lower, pressing myself against the wall as quietly as possible, but the carpet fibers rustled. The slightest shift. The smallest sound. Marcus heard it instantly. He turned his head sharply. "Hello," he said, his voice suddenly cold and steady. "You in here?" He took a step closer, boots whispering over the carpet. Another step. My throat tightened. Another step. I didn't breathe. He rounded the edge of the bookshelf. And stopped. Pause. A long one. He crouched down, reaching out slowly with one hand. His fingertips were inches from the shadows where I hid. I knew two things with absolute certainty. If he touched me, if he even brushed my sleeve, he'd drag me downstairs, restrain me, hold me until Tuesday's transfer van arrived. If I was lucky. If I wasn't lucky. Well, people who were supposed to be dead didn't stay alive long when money was involved. His fingers were almost on me. I made my move. I lunged sideways, pushing off the wall, slipping behind him in one rapid, desperate motion. My legs, weak from a lifetime of confinement, barely cooperated, but adrenaline strengthened them into steel. Marcus swore loudly, spinning around wildly. "There you are." I bolted. The hallway blurred under my feet. My socks slid across the hardwood floor as I sprinted, trying to remember the layout of a house I'd never lived in. Behind me, Marcus thundered after me. "Stop," he roared. "Landon." Hearing him say my name, my real name, made something primal ignite inside me. I ran faster. The front door was ahead. Just 20 feet. 15. 10. And then. He grabbed the back of my shirt. I stumbled, choked, fought, twisted, everything inside me screaming for survival. Marcus's grip tightened, hauling me backward like I weighed nothing. I clawed at the air, trying to break free. "Got you," he growled, pulling me closer. "Should have stayed downstairs like you were told." His breath was hot and sour on my neck. My body froze. Not with fear. With memory. 12 years of being told I was dangerous. Violent. Unpredictable. Maybe she meant for me to believe it. Maybe she thought fear would stop me. But something inside me, some raw instinct I'd never been allowed to express, finally surfaced. I twisted hard, shoving my elbow back into his ribs with a force I didn't know I had. Marcus grunted, loosening his grip just enough for me to tear myself free. I stumbled to the side and slammed my shoulder into the wall. Pain shot through me, but I didn't stop. I grabbed the first object I saw, a ceramic lamp on the entryway table, and hurled it at him. It wasn't strong. It wasn't graceful. But it hit his forearm with a satisfying crack. He cursed. Loudly. "You little..." He charged. I dodged, barely, slipping past him as he crashed into the wall. Pictures fell, shattering on the floor. I sprinted toward the door, yanking at the knob with frantic hands. Locked. Of course it was locked. Behind me, Marcus recovered. His footsteps pounded closer. I fumbled with the lock, my fingers shaking. Click. I tore the door open and ran. Cold night air slammed into me like a wave, shocking, pure, almost overwhelming. Freedom. Real freedom. Not theory. Not imagination. Not dreams. But Marcus was fast. He reached the doorway just as I leapt down the porch steps. "You can't run far," he shouted. "Marla's almost home." The street was empty. Dark. Silent. I didn't look back. I didn't think. I just ran. Faster than I ever had in my life. Toward the unknown. Toward danger. Toward the truth. And toward the single future I had left. One where I refused to disappear. I didn't know where I was running, only that I had to stay alive long enough to understand who I truly was and what had been stolen from me. The cold air slapped my skin, burning my lungs as I sprinted down Sycamore Hill, legs shaking from exhaustion and fear and 12 years of captivity. Every shadow looked like danger. Every passing car felt like a threat. Every sound made me flinch. Behind me, Marcus shouted once more, his voice cracking through the night like gunfire. "Landon, you can't hide from this." But I didn't stop. For the first time in my life, stopping meant dying. Streetlights blurred as I ran. My legs buckled twice, but adrenaline carried me forward. I didn't dare slow. I didn't dare look back. After 2 blocks, I ducked behind a row of hedges and collapsed onto the cold grass, gasping for air until the buzzing in my ears quieted enough to hear my own breath. And then I heard something else. A car. Marla's car. Headlights turned into the street. Her familiar silver sedan crawled slowly past the hedges where I hid. The tires crunched gravel with deliberate slowness, like a predator searching for movement. She was hunting me. The realization stole the breath from my lungs all over again. She wasn't panicked. She wasn't afraid. She was focused. She was making sure her $1,000,000 secret didn't escape. The car rolled by, and for a split second, I saw her face illuminated by the dashboard lights. Eyes wide. Teeth clenched. Jaw tight. Her expression wasn't concerned or motherly or protective. It was rage. At me. At the mess I'd made of her carefully crafted life. At the money slipping through her fingers. When the car passed, I forced myself up, legs trembling. I crossed the street, staying low, cutting through backyards, slipping around houses until I reached downtown, an area I'd only heard through muffled windows and static radio. Neon lights. Diners. Buses. People. So many people. They moved freely. Laughed freely. Ate freely. Existed freely. It felt like stepping into another universe. My senses were overwhelmed. My breath hitched. But I kept moving, pushing through the chaos until I reached the only building on the block with a simple handwritten sign taped to its glass door. Help wanted, janitor. Immediate start. Ridgeway Corporate Building. I stood frozen there for several seconds. My pulse throbbed in my ears. My hands shook from cold and fear and disbelief. But then something inside me whispered. Move. So I did. The lobby was quiet. A guard barely glanced at me. "You here for the night shift?" he grunted. I nodded. "Start tonight." He shoved a set of keys and a uniform shirt into my hands. "Don't steal anything. That's Rule 1. Break something, Rule 2. Don't talk to anyone, Rule 3. 12 years in a basement trained me well for that one. Those first 2 weeks were survival. I slept in a supply closet. Ate leftover sandwiches from marketing parties. Showered before dawn when the building was empty. Cleaned offices with silent precision. I was invisible. Until the night that changed everything. The night I found the man who knew my mother. That night, that conference room, that moment he looked at me and said, "You're supposed to be dead." Everything after that blurred into shock and urgency. Detectives. FBI. Evidence bags. Camera flashes. Questions I'd never been allowed to ask. They moved fast, because they understood something I didn't yet. Marla wasn't just abusive. She wasn't just manipulative. She wasn't just cruel. She was dangerous. And the more the investigators dug, the more monstrous the truth became. They arrested her within hours. Not at home. But at the airport. She had packed 2 suitcases and was buying a one-way ticket to Belize. Marcus had fled earlier, but he didn't get far. He was caught at a gas station 20 minutes outside Portland, burning documents in a trash can behind the building. Every lie they built collapsed in a single night. During the interrogation, detectives showed her the photo of me, alive, standing in the conference room. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She didn't deny it. She just said, "Should have never let him upstairs." That sentence chills me even now. The trial lasted 4 months. For months of hearing professionals testify about forged documents, fabricated diagnoses, financial theft, kidnapping, abuse. For months of facing the woman who stole my life and shaped me into something broken. But something incredible happened too. People found out who I was. Not the basement boy. Not the ghost. Not the mentally unstable kid who never existed in the records. But Landon Vale. Son of Evelyn Vale, a brilliant attorney, a woman loved by everyone who knew her. Grandson to a family that had spent 12 years mourning a child they believed was dead. When I first met my Aunt Teresa, she hugged me so tightly I couldn't breathe. She cried into my shirt like she had brought me back from the grave. "You have her eyes," she whispered. "Her fire. She'd be so proud of you." I didn't feel pride. Not then. I felt grief, for 12 stolen birthdays, 12 stolen summers, 12 stolen chances to become the person I could have been. But I also felt something else. Hope. The trust my mother left behind, now fully restored, gave me something I'd never had. A future. Not just financially. Emotionally. Mentally. Humanely. I entered therapy. Learned the things most people learn as children: how to stand tall, how to assert boundaries, how to trust selectively, how to believe that fear doesn't define me. Harrison Ridgway, the man who recognized me, didn't just become a mentor. He became family. He taught me law. He taught me confidence. He taught me that intelligence isn't measured by formal education, but by survival. And God knows I had survived. Eventually, I enrolled in accelerated classes. Earned my GED. Studied pre-law. Applied to universities. Got accepted. Me. A boy who lived 12 years underground. I bought an apartment with windows everywhere, because now that I had the sky, I refused to lose sight of it again. Sometimes I still wake in the night expecting darkness and dripping pipes and concrete walls. But then the moonlight touches my face through the windows and reminds me. I am free. Truly free. A year after the trial, I started a foundation called the Hidden Children Project, an organization dedicated to finding kids who vanish without explanation. Those who might not be missing. Just hidden. So far, we found 17. 17 children living the nightmare I escaped. I visit each one. I tell them, you are not broken. The world lied to you. But you can still be whole. Those meetings heal something in me every time. As for Marla? She received 40 years in prison. No parole. When the judge asked if she wanted to address the court, she lifted her chin and said only. He was easier to control when he was small. Those words no longer hurt me. They liberated me. Because she finally admitted the truth, something I had known deep in my soul the moment I ran out that door. The only thing dangerous about me was what would happen once I finally got free. And now here I stand, alive, rebuilding, learning, breathing. 12 years in a basement didn't destroy me. It forged me. If you've listened to my story this far, thank you. Truly. If it touched something in you, before you go, please subscribe to the channel, share this video with someone who might need hope, and comment your thoughts below. You never know who your voice might save. Because sometimes the truth doesn't just set you free. It sets fire to every lock you were ever trapped behind.